I'm not sure where everybody was from. Thank you so much for joining us this morning from my journey developing self-directed supports in college. My name is Gail Godwin, and I am a board member for the Alliance of Citizen-Directed Supports. We are very excited that some members and new non-members, people that are joining us for the first time, have signed up for this webinar. Just a little quick note about the Alliance. We were formed about 3 years ago and started membership about 2 years ago around the access and success of self-directing for people with all types of disabilities. Mostly in the United States, and we do have, I think we have an international view in the future. We do have some members that are from around the globe. Our purpose was to start the organization because there was, at the time, nothing exclusive to pure self-directed support. We found that there were a lot of membership organizations, and self-direction was part of, or maybe a department of or subgroup of the organization or association, which is amazing. It is different to be surrounded 100% by people that are truly sharing the values and carrying them out. We mean all people in the world can self-direct, and that is how we've joined together. So we thank you for joining us this morning. Just a quick plug, at the end you will receive a copy of the PowerPoint, and you'll have an opportunity to, if you would like, join the membership for 20% less, so you'll get that afterward. DJ Savarese is going to introduce himself, so I am going to make this short and brief and turn this over to him. DJ, thank you. I'm sorry, I have one more thing to mention. We are going to hold the Q&A until the end, and we will be monitoring the chat for questions. So if you have them as they come up, and you can type them into the chat, we will see them, and we'll have a time period for those later. If you are speaking verbally and would like to hold, we will also take those before we go into the Q&A section at the end. Sorry about that. Thank you. DJ.
Hi, everyone. I'm DJ Savarese. Thank you for coming to today's webinar on developing self-directed supports at college and university. I'm so hopeful about all of my people who are attending or planning to attend college.
Next.
I love thinking about and talking with you about what financial, social, emotional, and academic supports helped me, so you can think about and plan for what might best help you.
Next.
Each person's journey is unique depending upon their educational background, the kind of college they choose, where they live, their interests and aspirations, and the resources they have and need. Today I'll be sharing my reflections on my own journey from high school through college. Maybe some of you have seen my documentary film Teach. Inclusion shouldn't be a lottery, but if you haven't, here's a quick description of my circumstances. I was fully included in the regular education curriculum from kindergarten through high school graduation, first in Florida and then in Iowa. My dad teaches at a private liberal arts college in central Iowa, but after an extensive college tour in Iowa, Ohio, and New York, I opted to apply early decision to Oberlin College, a private, residential, liberal arts college outside Cleveland, and I needed extra financial support. I took a gap year and I started at Oberlin in September of 2012, graduating in May of 2017 with a double major in anthropology and creative writing. So let me start with the financial supports that made it possible for me to attend and graduate from Oberlin. They included scholarships, support from 2 vocational rehabilitation agencies, and Oberlin College itself. Scholarships played an important role in my financial support and also added work experience and award recognition to my CV or resume when I graduated. I began thinking about scholarships my junior year in high school and continued through graduation from college. Ohio Vocational Rehab required me to apply for and try to get at least 3 scholarships per year in exchange for their financial support. I wasn't required to win that many. I was only required to apply for that many. I loved being able to say that I had earned a lot of my tuition money. I also saw that I could make money and not be solely dependent upon my parents. For example, I used one of my high school $1,000 scholarships to buy a new laptop for college, and 2 of the bigger scholarships, the Herbert Hoover Uncommon Student Award, particular to Iowa residents, and the Autistic Self-Advocacy Scholar Fellow Program, which was the national program, involved doing advocacy work, which in turn led to my winning a Big Open Society Foundation Human Rights Initiative Community Youth Fellowship right as I graduated from college. It might be worth noting the variety of kinds of fellowships I applied for and received. For example, none of the scholarships I won in high school were particular to students with disabilities, and all of them were limited to state or local residents. I happened to design my Uncommon Student Award project around disability. It was entitled Plotting Hope, giving voice to non-speaking people, but I was the only one of the 10 to 15 finalists who identified as having a disability. During college, 2 of the 4 scholarships were nationally based and specific to autism, and 2 of them were Oberlin College based and specific to my success academically. I tell you this to encourage students to apply for a range of different scholarships. I heard about the ones I applied to from my school counselor, from the Dream Listserv, and from the admissions office and my academic departments, as well as from websites like QuestBridge. I also regularly Googled Autism Scholarship. DREAM, which stands for Disability Rights, Education Activism, and Mentoring, is a national organization run for, and by, college students with disabilities. Their work is supported by their sponsoring organization, the National Center for College Students with Disabilities, NCCSD, which is based at the Association on Higher Education and Disability, AHED. It's a really good source of information, as is the AHED listserv. As a senior in college, I actually found out about the OSF Human Rights Fellowship from the AHED listserv. In addition to scholarships and my parents, I also received financial assistance from both Iowa and Ohio Vocational Rehab and from my college to cover the expense of books, technology and support assistance, both in and out of class. I received support from 2 different states VR because I went to a residential college out of state and thought I would likely settle in Ohio after I graduated since I come from a small college town in Iowa with limited employment possibilities. I should mention that I moved to Ohio 7 months before college started and contacted Ohio VR almost immediately, and it took until late September to know I could get their support. It was a fairly new experience for the 2 states agencies to collaborate. I should also mention that I didn't receive any extra services, and it was imperative that no services be duplicated. So if one state agency offered a tuition stipend, the other state couldn't. In my case, the 2 agencies split their financial support like this. Iowa VR paid for up to 50 hours per week of out-of-class communication support assistance. Ohio VR paid for my books, for technology, such as an iPad, for 35 hours per week of personal care assistance, and for a yearly tuition stipend. Although I was at a private, 4-year college, Ohio VR based their stipends on the cost of community college the first 2 years and on the cost of in-state university tuition the last 3 years. Services from both states' vocational rehabilitation agencies were dependent on my having status as a full-time student and dependent upon my satisfactory completion of my coursework and the required paperwork and documentation, including an employment goal for after graduation. Neither agency objected to supporting me over 5 years instead of 4. In fact, both said most students work through college at a much slower rate. In addition to the 5-year grant they offered me, Oberlin College paid for a support assistant during class time and during any school-sponsored event or club I attended, and provided me, and any other student, with free use of Kurzweil and Microsoft Word, note takers, and letters of accommodation. That concludes my section on the financial supports I used. At the end of the presentation, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, but for now, let me continue on to the social and emotional supports I created and used. I opted to take a gap year between high school and college. It was then I met Jen, who was in her first year at Grinnell. I took a course in anthropology at Grinnell so I'd know what to expect from a college course and would know I was prepared to do the academic work required at a school of Oberlin's caliber. And I moved to Oberlin halfway through the year to allow me to get familiar with the town and to start the application process with Ohio Vocational Rehabilitation. I loved being able to read, work on my documentary film, relax for a year, give a few talks and events at colleges, and find, hire, and train my first college support assistant. I chose and trained my support assistants who were young and recent graduates of Oberlin College or a nearby college. Oberlin allowed me to do this even for my in-class assistants. I loved being around people my own age, and my assistants were familiar with the college campus and with college life. I could talk to them without my mom present. Most students thought my assistants were just good friends of mine who happened to be taking the same course that I was. It was fun to know I already had at least one close friend in every class. Although I hired and trained my support assistants, my mom did the first round of interviews to be sure the person was willing to commit to staying for at least an academic year, to explain how they'd get paid, and to make sure they weren't smokers or something that was an instant deal breaker for me. But I did the rest. I found I could train people a lot faster myself and could transition to them much more quickly without her around. Everyone met their commitment. Three assistants even opted to stay on for 2 years, and one assistant was so good I hired him despite his admitting up front that he could only stay for one semester. I wanted assistants who loved learning and were willing to read and write for long hours. In class, they modeled focused engagement for me and made sure I got every chance to be heard in class discussions. I usually had assistants with no foreknowledge of any of the classes I took. I chose to go out of state to college because I wanted to start over as my own person and not as my parents' child. And I've also spoken a lot about interdependence and self-efficacy, two principles that still guide my decision-making. When I first wrote about interdependence, well-meaning neurotypicals thought my autistic allies would be furious. The independent living movement has gained a lot for us. But actually, I have yet to meet a neurodiverse person who hasn't embraced interdependence. I used to think freedom was independence, and now I realized freedom is the room to breathe and to grow. Freedom is about connecting with others. Independence is not hopeful. It's not fearless. It's full of angry people striving to be able to say they need no one but themselves. Unlike independence, interdependence is hopeful and involves relating to myself as an integral part of something bigger than myself. Interdependence makes it possible for us to both get support and meaningfully engage with others. Interdependence follows the heart, not the head, and seeks connections, not divisions. Interdependence makes me feel safer in my own skin. When people meet me, I'm assessed by them as gold. It's not easy being assisted by others and needing them in order to do my work, but when my work assists others to learn to read and write or to follow their dreams or to understand what they have been misperceiving all along, then I'm able to work and to fearlessly hope for better lives for my people. Let me give you some examples. In the film, as in my life, I'm not just a physical presence. I'm an integral part of my school's community. I'm an expected and valued participant in class discussions in ninth grade physical science, in 12th grade AP English, and in my first year disability seminar at Oberlin College. You also see me presenting on the nervous system and voluntary and involuntary movements in my 11th grade anatomy and physiology class, and creating and co-directing a reader's theater performance about my lived experience as a non-speaking child. Once I started at Oberlin, My well-being still depended upon my being an integral part of the courses I took and other activities on campus. I used my poetry workshops and my small discussion classes as a way to find and connect with other students who shared my interests or outlooks. I lived on campus at my college not because it was easy but because it offered me lots more opportunities to meet and connect with my friends. I spent one semester adjusting to classes before moving into the dorm overnight. I did work and met friends there during the day from the very beginning and moved in full-time at the beginning of my second semester. I opted to live in the same college suite all 5 years, which offered me a sense of home at a time when I needed it most. I used the added space to host dinners and creative art salons with my friends. Because I'm not a partier, the art salons were a chance for everyone to soberly celebrate each person's talents in poetry, fiction, film, music, conducting, choreography, dance, visual arts, and digital music. I also enjoyed attending musical events at a small venue on campus called Cat in the Cream and regularly attended college-sponsored readings, concerts, speakers, and dance performances with friends. I also loved just meeting a friend for dinner or Sunday morning tea and just catching up. In the last 3 years I was there, I collaborated on planning Neurodiversity Week events and co-taught a course on neurodiversity and advocacy. And sometimes, when we needed to blow off steam, we'd go to a trampoline gym or the local roller rink. I left college with 9 or 10 friends I've visited multiple times since graduating. A few were support assistants, but most were friends I found along the way. I also found some professors who were more than teachers to me as well. I met my first advisor before I even started at Oberlin. She was handpicked and handpicked me as well. Eventually she became my professor, teaching my first year seminar on disability. Early on, she encouraged me to write to professors and get to know them before I even took their classes. And eventually, like most college students, I studied with some of my favorite professors multiple times. I left college with about 8 whom I consider lifelong friends and who I see and correspond with regularly. I took 3.5 credits each semester. 3 were hardcore academic credits and counted toward graduation. Most half-credit courses were wellness classes and none but the usual number for all students counted toward graduation. The half credit did allow me to take 3.5 credits to maintain full-time status. For the most part, I used my half-credit wellness courses to manage my anxiety. I took everything ranging from swimming to technology and communication, to somatic-based, and body practices such as biofeedback breathing, loving kindness, 4 energies, intentional meditation, Buddhist gathas, American Sign Language, and yoga. Next, I'd like to talk about the academic supports I used. In high school, I opted to take the honors and AP or advanced placement courses and all the college level courses that were offered at the high school. I could have taken some Grinnell College courses, too, but I opted not to. AP courses can count toward college if you score above a certain score on the AP exams. The college-level courses I took at the high school could have counted for college credit if I had opted to attend community college after high school. The Grinnell College course I took during my gap year did transfer as a full credit course when I enrolled at Oberlin. I always scored in the top percentile when I took the annual standardized test all students at my school had to take, but when it came to standardized college entrance exams, I did well but not outstanding. In my case, I opted to take the ACTs and not the SATs. I did this so I could take the exam at my high school with a familiar school counselor proctoring the exam. The ACT committee gave me the following accommodations based on my IEP accommodations and on my psychiatrist's confirmation of my various diagnoses, strengths, and challenges. I took the exam in my usual private test-taking, homework completing room at the school with my school-appointed aide. I received 3 times extended time, including the stop clock if I experienced a panic attack. The only stipulation was that I needed to finish a given test on the same day. I couldn't start and finish the same section of the test on different days. I used an answer bank on an 8 by 11 and a half-inch piece of paper for multiple choice and familiar, school-appointed scribe who filled in the appropriate bubbles on the answer form. And I was able to type the essays using supported typing. I did college admissions interviews and tours at all 7 colleges and universities I considered, and at least one of my college essays began with me self-identifying as a fully included, non-speaking autistic. Once at Oberlin, I got first priority registration, which ensured I got my top 3 course choices as long as I had the prerequisites for them. But in the last 3 years, I also attended some potential classes during drop-ed week. I liked to know I'd made the right choices, and it also allowed me to experience the professor, the particular group of students, and the environment before committing to taking the class. I never actually did drop or add a class, but this allowed me not to be stuck in the ones I'd registered for if something about the professor, class size, or room was not a good fit. I found my top choices in the course catalog for each semester. Then I visually laid out the possible weekly and daily schedules I could have. I also paid attention to whether a professor was visiting, assistant, or associate. I avoided intro-level lecture classes unless they were a requirement or prerequisite for a more advanced class, and, as I said earlier, I often took higher-level classes because they are smaller and discussion-based. They offered more opportunities for conversation and for connecting with other students and the professor. I loved college not as a freedom campaign, but as a chance to learn so much along so many other smart people. I was able to participate in class discussions, both by asking professors to give reading prompts, which helped all students read and discuss more articulately, and pre-recording my responses to those questions. And by writing and having my assistant voice my written responses aloud. My assistant also helped signal the professor when I had something to say, allowing me to be heard even when chatty students dominated discussion. I also tried, whenever presentations were required, to be the second or third person to present in the semester. This offered a chance for the other students, who might not know me, to realize how smart and creative I am. Professors said it also tended to raise the level of presentations by any students whose presentation followed mine. If more than one student presented on a given day, I always asked to go first, both to be able to set up and check my technology before class and to quell my nerves as much as possible. The professor understood if I then needed to take a break right after the presentation to bring my energy back to classroom mode. I rarely required an extension because it made me too nervous. I avoided this by asking for paper topics well in advance. But in a few semesters, I opted for such a heavy course load of writing or insisted on taking courses whose assignments were due on the same days. In this case, I would map out the entire semester's assignments and ask for a possible extension 1 to 2 weeks in advance. I also got and used the same number of semester incompletes as any student was allowed while at the college. I think that number was 2. But 90% of the time, my assignments were in on time. So in closing, I'd like to return to the idea of self-directed supports. For me, self-direction has to do with interdependence, self-efficacy, and the right to make my own decisions, including taking risks and falling short if need be. Making my way to Oberlin was life-changing for me. I managed myself most of the time with only a communication assistant and sometimes spent time in the dorm and at school-sponsored events on my own. I had a sane group of friends and lots of other individual people I related with. For me to lead a life based on self-directed supports, I needed important friendships and relationships. I needed to make an impact on class discussions, on the college campus, in the lives of my friends just as I needed my classmates, the college, and my friends to make an impact on me. I needed to be allowed to take risks. I needed to be employable by the time I graduated. I needed to constantly learn and grow, and I needed to make my own decisions. I'm grateful for all I got out of Oberlin College and for all I put into it. I hope each of you shoots for the stars, whatever that might look like for each of you setting out on your own unique journey. Thank you for your time and attention this morning. Hopefully this presentation has answered some of your questions and prompted others. I'd love to take time now to answer as many of them as I can. Gail or Marnie, can you remind people of the process for asking questions?
Hello, absolutely, DJ. That was fantastic. The process at this point, I have 4 questions in the queue. And before we get into the Q&A, I'm going to wait about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, in case people are using devices and need to have some time to program them or input them with their questions. We will also at this time take anyone that is able to use is maybe only on the phone or is not using chat to ask their questions, and we'll put them in the list. So we are opened up now for questions. If I don't know if you see a hand raise, or Marnie, you can unmute anyone that wants to be unmuted. Great. Any questions outside of the ones that were already entered into the chat or the Q&A?
Attends, on va regarder. Alors, désolé.
And maybe I could go just to check Nicholas.
Nico. Alors, regarde.
Malika,
Vas-y, tu veux mettre des choses? Vas-y.
Bid, Gopal,
H N L
Donc, thank you.
D J
Vas-y, Nico.
Knowledge F O R for
Nicolas, vas-y, un peu plus vite. Là.
S O so
Pour
M
tu veux qu'on pose des questions à deux, parce que ça va pas un peu long aussi. Vas-y, revérifie. Your quoi, Nicolas? Your presentation. Vas-y, Nicolas. Alors, tu veux te présenter, toi, dire? Tu veux dire que tu es étudiant aussi, que c'est ça? Speaking. Mais alors après, tu mettras donc tu présentes et là tu m'auras ta question. Speaking autistic, below students. Je voudrais savoir si il a, vas-y Nicolas, s'il a des je donne mon examen, mais il t'a dit ce qu'il avait une. Il fallait qu'il se mette des trucs à rendre, il demandait plusieurs semaines avant. Enfin. Alors, par rapport au temps, par exemple, c'est ça? On dit l'examen, non? You have enough time, c'est ça? On dit exam.
I am just checking in. We're waiting on a question from Nicholas. Is that correct? Oops. Or perhaps Philip?
Oh, c'est pas vrai, mince. Oh, merde. Faut recommencer? Oh, tiens, je vais Nico faire vraiment.
Okay. We're going to, I'm not sure. There is still an open floor for questions. We'll start on number 1. And maybe Marnie, if you could go to mute again.
French. Non-speaking. Ah là là là.
Marnie?
Nom de Dieu, j'arrive pas à aller vite.
Do you want me to mute everyone, Gail, or unmute?
Speaking.
No, mute. We're going to start the Q&A. I'm not sure.
Student.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Not that I want to. So our first question. So this just message to everyone. We will reopen again, and please raise a hand or indicate anything. We'll come back to someone. I was not sure if we were waiting for a question, so we'll just check back in. The first question is from Susan on financial supports. DJ, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. We were told that DHS will pay full ride for in-state tuition for those with disabilities. Does this sound wrong to you? DJ, I'm sorry, I believe you're muted. DJ, could you repeat the answer? I do apologize.
It may depend on each state.
Okay.
When I was in school, they paid the community college rate for 2 years and then the full in-state rate as long as I was fully enrolled.
Great. Thank you, DJ. Susan, do you have a follow-up question to that? Thank you. Number two, DJ, this is from Philip. What is DHS?
I believe it stands for Department of Human Services, but that might be a question for Susan. Vocational Rehabilitation was the agency that supported my tuition stipend.
Great. Thank you. And Susan does have a note in the chat as well, that she believed that she also meant DRS, Department of Rehab Services. I think that ties it up. Philip, does that answer your question? Do you have a follow-up question? That's it. Philip says that answers it, and thanks. Thank you, Philip. Number 3, Susan on supports. DJ, this is back to you. I am curious how you train your own assistants. We have trained lots of people to work with my son, but my son is not yet able to hold his own board. We are getting there. Any tips? Question mark.
I use handwriting, sign language, and typing to communicate, but even with a letterboard user, it's possible to simply say what the letterboard user says and not add in any of your own ideas as the parent.
Thank you, DJ. I see that you've muted again, so I'm going to believe that was your full answer and ask Susan any follow-up questions to that. DJ, a follow-up question from Susan says, so you are saying that the letterboard users directs all conversation, question mark?
I see the page. I can see it. I hear you. Will this presentation be available in tape?
All right.
Yes. I train my support assistants, including my parents, never to speak for themselves when supporting me. Their job is to simply ensure my successful communication.
Excellent. And Susan comments, we usually have new people read factual items and then ask fact-based questions using choices to establish communication. This takes several months, but usually my son then gets conversational with them and I'm not needed. Sounds like the process is different for you. DJ, if you'd like to comment.
It just gets faster and easier to climb that communication ladder as someone trains more and more people. Sometimes it's faster if a comfortable, familiar support assistant isn't in the room with me when I'm training someone new.
Great. Excellent. Thank you, DJ. Question from Nicholas. Thank you, DJ, for the presentation. I'm a French non-speaking autistic student, in parentheses, lowercase AW. For exams, do you have enough time? Question mark. That's a big issue for me, he says. Sorry about that. Ready?
I had 3 times extended time for tests with the possibility of taking a break and of stopping the clock if panic really took hold.
I'm sorry, I think I lost my sound for a moment. DJ, did you answer? I apologize. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. All right. I thought I muted from the, and I muted my whole computer. Mary Ellen states, this is a statement from Mary Ellen. I love the talk about independence and interdependence. My son really needs to hear this. DJ, if you'd like to comment, or anyone.
Yes. Has he seen my keynote at the United Nations? He could hear more about this topic and my sense of self-direction and effective advocacy if he watched that.
We will get that link out with the PowerPoint and follow up. Thank you, DJ. DJ, is it on YouTube?
Baba. Ready?
I can send you the link. I think so. Thank you, Gail.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. From Susan. Oh, sorry, Mary Ellen. My husband who teaches special ed wants to show that to his class also. She says, thank you. Thank you, Mary Ellen. Susan asks, curious what you are working on post-graduation. Another movie, I hope, exclamation. Oops.
So my fellowship with OSF has ended. During it, I used my film to build community and advocate for change at the national level, specifically change focused on self-determined, inclusive lives, literacy-based education, and communication for alternatively communicating people through targeted study guides, community workshops based on reading and writing poetry, creating the websites about my literacy journey, and teaching and publishing. Now I am currently writing, getting to know my new hometown of Iowa City, traveling some with my film, and fundraising for the next leg of my journey, which hopes to focus much more on working with K through 12 public schools. It's been hard to get into the public schools because of a lack of funding, so I'm hoping to overcome that obstacle by raising the funds myself through fellowships, grants, and private donors. I'm also working with my friend and fellow activist Jamie Burke on adding to a website entitled listentous.net, which offers free and accessible information to teachers and parents about literacy, sensory, motor, and inclusion tools. The world lacks teachers training in how to support unconventional paths to literacy in neurodiverse minds. I think we owe it to the next generation to offer teachers this information. Language is a tool, and it needs to work for us, not against us. Finally, I'm hoping to start a multifaceted Hope Collaborative, a cooperative of wellness and learning projects, with some of my friends from Oberlin and some of my new friends in Iowa City.
That's incredible. Susan has also maybe a follow-up to that. She says that I very much appreciate you taking the time to help the next wave of spellers prepare for college. I follow you on Facebook. Are you on other social media? A blog? For example, a blog? Second question.
Not yet. I'm terrible about social media. Some people say it's better to friend my dad. He's on Facebook and posts a lot about me. I do have my website, www.djsavarese.com, that links to all my work in writing.
I put that in the chat, DJ, and we will make sure that goes out as well, if it's not already out. We have a comment from Susan that others may also have. Whoops, I'm sorry. Nope, that isn't. Question, I'm sorry, Susan, will this presentation be available in taped format? I wrote my answer in. The presentation is available recorded on our member section of our website. DJ, any remarks to that? Or Susan, follow up to that? Or anything? This has been fantastic.
So become a member if you can. It's a wonderful organization.
DJ, thank you. Mary Ellen states, thank you so much, DJ. This was fantastic with an exclamation point, feeling inspired. And DJ, I neglected to mention that DJ is also on the board of the Alliance. We couldn't be more inspired. So I want to thank everyone. You stayed on past the time, which was really appreciated, and the patience with a little bit of my tech issue there. Sorry about that. Some of the things that I'm just seeing are actually in the PowerPoint, some of the websites, and we will make sure to get the video to you as well. Susan, I see another link that will also include the listentous.net. Thank you. All right. DJ, would you like to mention anything? Does anyone have any additional questions or comments? I'm also watching the chat. Jessica, Mary Ellen, Malika, Nicholas, Philip, Susan, and Vid, thank you all for your time. Can we link this presentation to our Facebook groups? Susan replies, we do reserve the presentation itself, the recorded just for members. It is not linkable to Facebook groups. DJ, I don't know if you have a comment about your PowerPoint, and I may be a question ahead of you, DJ, so I'm going to stop. Nicholas says, thank you to all. Thank you, Nicholas.
Let me know if there were things that weren't helpful and what other topics you'd like to hear us present about.
Great. We'll include that in the survey. Marnie, is that okay if we add that question?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Great. Malika states, thank you so much, DJ, for taking out the time to share your experiences with us. This is very useful for my son who's going to start high school soon. I wish you the very best in all you do. Wonderful, Malika, that's great. Well, thank you, everyone. I don't want to be, Malika, that's a beautiful close. And DJ, that sounded like perhaps your a closing remark too as well. We do have future sessions. We were considering running this 2 times, and DJ will make that decision. So if you see it again advertised, that is definitely something you can link to your Facebook groups and spread the word. Thank you so much from the Alliance, and DJ, this was incredible, the preparation and the time that you took for all of us this morning. Thank you, everyone. All right, we will be signing off. Please contact us if you have anything that you feel you left out or we missed. All right. Sorry, DJ. Thank you. Excellent. Have a great Saturday.